Red soil burns under the West African sun in Yako. A baby boy is born into a humble Catholic family. His name is written Thomas Isidore Newell Sankara. A large family of 10 siblings gathers around Joseph and Marguerite. Joseph Sankara wears his colonial gendarme uniform, medals shining. Marguerite Sankara prays silently, her eyes calm and strong. Joseph fights in France's army during World War II. He returns home, facing racism and humiliation. Young Thomas watches, silent and thoughtful. Family moves from Yako to Gaowu, then Bobo Dioulasso. Bobo Dioulasso bustles with markets and music. Thomas sits in a Catholic mission classroom. He quietly questions colonial lies. 1960, Upper Volta gains independence, but the French still pull the strings. Thomas sees freedom is not real yet. A younger sibling dies from a preventable illness. He writes, "Why must the poor suffer for being poor?" At 14, Thomas decides to join the military to change the system. In 1966, at age 17, Thomas Sankara joined the Kadiogo Military Academy in Ouagadougou, one of the most elite training schools in the country. It surprised his teachers. A boy known for poetry and philosophy, now training for war. But Thomas was clear. I'm not joining to fight people. I'm joining to fight injustice. At Kadiogo, he began to rise. He wasn't the strongest or loudest, but he was brilliant, disciplined, and thoughtful. He kept a guitar beside his rifle and notebooks filled with tactical notes and revolutionary ideas. Here, he met Blaise Compaoré, his closest friend, political ally, and future betrayer. By 1970, Thomas was sent to Antsirabe, Madagascar, for advanced military and political studies. There, he witnessed the 1972 Malagasy uprising, students and workers rising against a corrupt, colonial-backed government. Thomas didn't just watch, he marched with them, learned from activists, and studied revolutionary theory by night. He was influenced by Marx, Lenin, and Cabral, but he didn't blindly follow ideology. He took what fit Africa's reality and rejected the rest. He believed in African socialism rooted in dignity, justice, and self-reliance. Returning home in 1974, he was promoted to captain and fought briefly against Mali, but called it useless. Bloodshed caused by political puppets. The higher he rose, the more he taught soldiers about justice, not just war. In 1976, Thomas became commander of the Commando Training Center in P. There, he built a new kind of military. Soldiers farmed food, built schools and clinics, and served the people instead of dominating them. He banned officers from drinking, abusing villagers, or demanding special treatment. His camp became a model of service, not power. Young soldiers admired him, villagers respected him, but elites began to fear his growing influence. In private journals he wrote, "You cannot liberate people by copying colonizers. You must walk with the people, sweat with them, suffer with them." By the late 1970s, his name had spread, not just as a military genius, but as a philosopher in uniform. By the late 1970s, Thomas Sankara had become more than just a brilliant military officer. He was now a rising national figure, known for his sharp mind, humble lifestyle, and unshakable principles. In 1977, as commander of P Commando Base, he became known as the People's Soldier. He transformed the P military base into a community center for education and self-reliance. He banned elitism within military ranks, and soldiers grew their own food, treated civilians with respect, and participated in rural development. He introduced political education for soldiers, telling them, "You must understand whom you protect and why." Word began to spread about this unorthodox commander. In villages, they whispered, "He speaks like us. He thinks like us. But he's in uniform." In September 1981, under President Zirbo, Thomas Sankara was brought into the government. He used the position to expose censorship and elite corruption. He refused luxury cars, government perks, and walked to work on foot. Soon, he was labeled the incorruptible captain. But the elite were uneasy. His popularity was growing too fast, and his honesty was too dangerous. Just a few months later, he resigned in protest, stating, "I will not serve in a government that silences truth and betrays its own people." In November 1982, after a military coup ousted Zirbo, the new regime led by Major Jean-Baptiste Ouedraogo again called on Thomas, this time naming him Prime Minister of Upper Volta. As Prime Minister, he met with Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi, Fidel Castro, and revolutionaries across Africa. He gave fiery speeches against imperialism, debt slavery, and Western control. He openly refused orders from the French embassy and methyl-aligned politicians. "We will not be slaves in our own land, not to kings, not to bankers," he declared. In May 1983, Sankara was arrested and placed under house arrest, without charges, without warning. The country erupted in protest. Thousands marched in Ouagadougou with placards reading, "Free Sankara, free our future." On August 4, 1983, just 3 months after Sankara's arrest, his closest ally Blaise Compaoré led a successful coup. With young revolutionary soldiers, they freed Thomas Sankara and declared a new revolutionary government. At just 33 years old, Thomas Sankara became the president of Upper Volta. He renamed the country to Burkina Faso, Land of Upright People. He swore in during a modest ceremony, wore military fatigues, and rejected any personal palace or luxuries. He declared a democratic and popular revolution rooted in self-reliance, anti-corruption, gender equality, and Pan-Africanism. And he told his people, "We must dare to invent the future. We will be the example Africa has waited for." At just 33 years old, Thomas Sankara took office, not as a ruler, but as a servant of the people. He wasn't wearing a suit. He wore his military fatigues. He didn't move into a palace. He stayed in his humble home. He didn't ride a luxury car. He chose a used Renault 5, one of the cheapest cars in the country. This wasn't just symbolism. This was revolution in action. Changed the country's name from Upper Volta to Burkina Faso, meaning Land of the Upright People. Citizens were now Burkinabe, not subjects of France, but free people of their soil. Launched one of Africa's most aggressive health campaigns. 2.5 million children vaccinated. Infant mortality dropped dramatically. We can't talk revolution if our children are dying of diseases we can prevent. Built hundreds of new schools in rural areas. Launched nationwide literacy campaigns. Promoted education in local African languages, not just French. Banned forced marriages and female genital mutilation, FGM. Appointed women to key government positions. Urged women to join the military, work, and own land. A revolution cannot triumph without the emancipation of women, promoted local farming, and discouraged food imports, encouraged the planting of millions of trees to fight desertification. Within 4 years, Burkina Faso became self-sufficient in food production, something never achieved before. We must produce what we consume and consume what we produce. Ministers were banned from luxury travel, had to fly economy. Government limousines were sold off. His own presidential salary, only $450 per month. He even sold the air conditioning from his office to show solidarity with the poor. Sankara was outspoken against global institutions like the IMF and World Bank. At an OAU summit, he said, "They ask us to repay a debt that was never ours. Let's not pay." He played the guitar, rode bicycles, ate with his soldiers, and held public meetings in villages. He became known as Africa's Che Guevara. Our revolution is not a march backward. It is the sunrise of a new Africa. While the people loved him, foreign powers, corrupt elites, and some old allies began to see him as a threat. Even Blaise Compaoré, his lifelong friend and comrade, began to grow distant. "He's too idealistic," they whispered. "Too fast, too bold, too dangerous." Chapter ends on a shot of Thomas saluting the flag, wind blowing. Back into a crowd of Burkina jeering. Thomas Sankara had transformed Burkina Faso in just 4 years. But as the light of revolution spread, shadows began to gather, not from outside, but from within. The revolutionary government was built on trust. But by 1985, cracks had started to appear. At the center of this slow unraveling was Blaise Compaoré, Sankara's closest friend, his comrade in arms, and the man who helped bring him to power. But Blaise began to change. He wanted more diplomacy, less confrontation. He preferred compromise. Thomas preferred principle. Behind closed doors, Sankara's fiery stance on debt, imperialism, and corruption began to look like a threat to stability and to foreign interests. 1985. Agature Strip War. While Sankara kept the conflict limited and called for peace, it exposed the growing tension between the military factions under him. Many officers wanted a more aggressive response. Sankara refused. He believed war would divide Africa further, calling it a fratricidal fight between two poor brothers for land neither truly owns. But his refusal to bow to military pressure angered powerful generals. Sankara pushed forward. Land redistribution angered tribal chiefs. Ban on foreign luxury goods hit elite business owners. Attacks on corruption exposed government insiders. Gender equality laws challenged patriarchal customs. Foreign donors, especially France, the IMF, and Ivory Coast, began withdrawing support and funding opposition figures. In speeches, Sankara warned, "He who feeds you controls you." If our revolution must survive, it must be funded by our own sweat. By early 1987, Sankara suspected betrayal. He stopped attending some events. He shortened public speeches. He even confided to a friend, "I know they are planning to kill me, but while they wait, I will not stop building the future." Still, he refused bodyguards, refused exile, and refused to be silent. October 15th, 1987, the final day. Thomas Sankara walked into a meeting at the National Council headquarters. He greeted each member personally, as always, smiling, humble, unaware that death waited outside. At 4:30 p.m., a group of soldiers stormed the compound. They opened fire without warning. Thomas Sankara stood up and said, "You may kill a man, but not his ideas." He was shot multiple times, along with 12 of his closest aides. His body was quickly buried in an unmarked grave. No ceremony, no funeral, no last words to the world. The revolution had been stabbed from within. You can kill a revolutionary, but you can't kill the revolution. Thomas Sankara. October 15th, 1987. When the gunfire ended, Thomas Sankara's body was left riddled with bullets, and his legacy was hurriedly buried under silence. No ceremony, no statement, no national mourning. His remains were dumped into a shallow, unmarked grave, as if his memory could be erased. Within hours, Blaise Compaoré declared himself president of Burkina Faso. He reversed many reforms. Foreign debt repayments resumed, land returned to elites, media suppressed. Though state media erased his name, the people did not forget. In October 2014, Blaise Compaoré tried to change the constitution, but the people revolted. After 2 days of mass protests, Compaoré resigned and fled the country. In 2023, the government officially renamed the military base as Thomas Sankara Memorial Site, a statue built not grand, but humble. Bronze bicycle beside him, hand raised in hope. They took his life, but could never touch his legacy. Thomas Sankara was never just a man. He was a movement,